All right, so I'm kind of behind on a few other videos, so here's one that I wanted to do for a while. So about 6 months ago, I replaced the oil pump on my 2001 Odyssey. It has, well, currently it has about 243,000 miles, and at 240, I replaced the oil pump because of leaking oil pump seals. So this is what it looks like from the outside. This is the hole where the crankshaft comes through. This is where the where your oil pump, or your oil filter housing attaches, and the rest are attachment bolts. This is I think where an idler pulley goes. And so if we flip it over, so this is what it looks like from the outside. So your timing chain runs in through here. Your timing sprocket, your timing gear attached to the camshaft is right here. So this is what it looks like from the outside. And we flip it over. Here's what we get on the inside. So where it was leaking from, you had an oil seal right here, and then this is your oil pump itself. I believe this is pretty common among most of the Honda V6 engines. Certainly the ones that I've seen from the outside look similar, and if your design works, why would you change it? So for years, I wasn't quite sure how these things operated. I always assumed it was some kind of a piston, and maybe years ago it was. But when I got this apart and took a look at it, this is the outer case that covers that, and it creates a sealed cavity in there. What we've got is we have two rotors, and they fit so tightly that I checked. The wear limit is 8 thou, 0.008, and this feeler gauge is 0.008, and I can't get it in there. This is the closest the fit is. I can't squeeze it in here. So this thing was still good, and the only reason it was leaking because these rubber gaskets that seal these channels, and then I imagine this one here too that seals the oil filter housing, or mounts the oil filter housing and seals that. They dry out and start leaking. So this thing had been leaking for years, and it basically had gotten to the point where I was losing a quart every 500 miles. And it wasn't burning it. I now have 3,000 miles. I'm going to take it to 3,500 before I change my oil here pretty soon. And I've been checking the dipstick at least once a month. I haven't noticed a drop at all. So I think I've solved the problem. Anyway, back to the way the oil pump itself works. So this is the pump housing. This is the pump right here. The pump consists of these two rotors, an inner rotor and an outer rotor. And I don't know what kind of profile, what kind of gear profile you'd call this. It's not an involute gear. I don't know if it's some kind of cardioid pattern. I am too lazy to go look this up on the internet, but you can see how this rotates. It is such a tight fit in there. Like I said, I can't get an 8 thou feeler gauge in there. So it's the wear limit is 8 thou. Nominal is 0.02 to 0.006. It is such a perfect fit in there, and it feels super smooth. It can just rotate like that. But when one of these housings is fixed, so in the outer rotor, when one of these rotors is fixed, like the outer one is fixed within the pump body, you can see that it's off center. So the crankshaft hole is off center. You can see that this is made to fit on the crankshaft. And it's got a flat side, and it's got a concave bit there that it locks it onto the crankshaft, and it also, I think, gives it a little better balance. I haven't balanced this to see how perfectly balanced it is, but you can imagine this thing is meant to, I think the red line is somewhere around 6,400 RPM, maybe 6,500. But you can imagine this thing is made to pump as efficiently at 1,000 RPM as it is at the red line. Now what happens here, the way this works, if you've never seen one of these, you can see as this rotates, and it's off center, it's perfectly seated right here on this end. And you can see when you open these up, let me pull out the inner rotor. you can see it's got a solid, it's mostly hollow all the way through here. This is the high pressure oil side, and this is the low pressure or suction side, if you want to think of it that way. And it's got this is solid through here, so it creates two separate sides. And this rotor, the inner rotor, rotates within that. And so you can see what happens. There's such a tight fit. I've really got to get it perfectly in there to get it to drop in. You can see what happens. It goes from closed at this point here. And see, the cover is made the same way. It fits like this. So there's that portion that seals these two chambers. A little bit of wear there, but I wasn't noticing any drop in oil pressure, just the loss of oil. Anyway, it goes from completely closed here and starts to open. So as this continues to rotate, it's continuously opening and causing a gap here, which causes a suction to happen. Well, this so happens that this is the oil strainer that bolts into this. It goes down into your oil pan. So it sucks the oil up into here. It's now occupying this volume here, and when it gets to this point, it shuts it off. And this is, if you can take a look at it, this is the point where these are lined up, and this creates your maximum volume. From this point, it starts to collapse. So that oil that was sucked into this space here and is now held in that, which is what is a sealed chamber now, begins to compress. And it gets squeezed out as this volume collapses and disappears. And now that oil that was sucked into here has now been squeezed out, and it goes right into your oil filter right here. This is your whole oil filter, your whole oil distribution. Gets distributed from here, comes from this hole through here, through your filter, then into some ports that are drilled through and plugged. You can see it goes through the valve body here and here. So this must be, I'm guessing, to the front and rear heads. Really, that's the only place I see it going out of that. This is your oil pressure switch is right here. So that's how that works. Anyway, I found that pretty fascinating, and I had never seen it before. I looked, I didn't see anybody that did a video that showed this or explained it, and so here it is.
I'd also like to say that I don't know what these rotors are made of. It is some kind of magnetic material, so a steel of some sort, but beyond that I have absolutely no idea. If anyone knows, feel free to leave a comment.
Sushi, what are you doing?